Welcome to Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. Today we're going to talk about backyard orchard culture. What is it and how do you practice it? So there's this method we need to talk about called backyard orchard culture, and it's a real thing and it's a specific thing, and there's a lot of confusion between folks who are trying to grow fruit trees on their property who have maybe learned the ways their dad did it or their grandpa did it or the commercial growers do it. There's a better way to do it. It's a specific thing, backyard orchard culture. Since our backyards are small, they're not like a commercial orchard. This method has been developed by many people, but I've been enjoying Dave Wilson's presentations on the pioneering work they do at Dave Wilson's nursery. And so I'm going to put in a backyard orchard, but the thing about it is you got to keep your trees small. So this is a plum tree I bought the other day. It's about 6 to 7 feet tall, way up there at the top. But we're going to bring it down all the way to here. We're going to top 2/3 of this tree off, and we're going to keep these 5 branches here and make those our main growing branches. And that may seem extreme, but I don't want this tree any taller than me. As it grows up in that little hole right there, next to a peach tree that's going to be about the same size, I don't want it getting any larger than that. And that's the beauty of this backyard orchard culture. You can plant a lot of trees in a small space if you keep those trees small. Yes, it's a little bit of work, but people have been doing this for centuries. I saw some apple hedges, apple trees grown as hedges that you could literally step over, and they were loaded with apples. And so it's a viable option. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how to take a tree like this when it's dormant, put it in a hole, and where to make your cuts. Hole inspector is at work. What are you doing, Phoebe? Huh? Did you find a grub? All right. The old fig tree used to be right there. You can see kind of the ground. Still shows signs that it was there. This is right next to it. I didn't want to have to dig through all those roots, but this tree failed because there was a lot of shade cast by some giant trees that used to be right there. Now that issue is resolved, this is a very sunny spot. So now in my area, my hard black gumbo clay down here, I gotta make a pretty good sized hole, chop up some of that clay. I'm not gonna amend this soil in any way. I'm just gonna kind of roughly cut the walls to encourage the roots to find niches to go into. If I amend the soil, what's typically gonna happen is your roots are just gonna keep circling in that hole because they are in that nice amended soil. There's no reason for them to want to try to penetrate the clay. If you put them in the soil that they have to grow in, then they will learn real quickly that, oh man, we got to get out of here, and they'll start spreading out. There we go. Let's take a look. The roots seem pretty good here. I don't see anything running around. So that's perfect depth on that hole. All right, let's make sure it's oriented the right way. We're going to select these branches. I want these 2 right here to kind of go this way, so. When you put a new tree in, you want to water it in really well. This clay doesn't drain real fast, so I'm kind of in that position where I don't want to water too much and have water just sit in that hole. One way you can overcome clay soil is to actually build a small little raised bed around these and plant them in that raised bed. Their roots will get down into the soil, but that raised bed will drain well. I've had trees right here before. I think this is a pretty sturdy tree. I think it'll do fine, but I'm going to give it a little water. This will help settle the soil if there's any air pockets in there. As I learn about backyard orchard culture, I'm learning that it's not your dad's or grandfather's way of growing their fruit trees. My dad wanted his fruit trees taller than the power lines, and we'd get some fruit way up there and you could never go get it. It's also, backyard orchard culture is not thinking like a commercial grower. Commercial growers need broad spacing of their trees and they want tall trees, and they they need to drive trucks down those rows. You know, in the backyard, I don't need to drive. All I need is for me to be able to fit in between my trees. So you can put your spacing quite close. In fact, if you have like kinds of trees, you can plant, multi-plant in the same hole, several different kinds of trees. You could do like three, a peach, a nectarine, and some other kind of stone fruit, all in the same hole. Over at Dave Wilson Nursery, they've planted at all different kinds of spacings, and they talk about the best spacing for 4 trees is like, you know, 1.5 feet or something like that, and you can grow those all together. It's actually feasible. We're not doing commercial orchard growing. We also want to, for most trees, you want to grow them in a goblet shape. You want to trim them down so you have 3, maybe 4. If you're going to push it, maybe 5 main scaffold branches, and that just means these branches like this that are going to hold the bulk of the tree. And you only want to select a few of them, and everything else goes. And the reason for that is you want to form a goblet shape. Over the first year, we're not interested in fruit. We're interested in getting our main scaffold branches going the way we want them to go. The second year, we're going to prune for shape and size as well. And then in the third year, we'll start expecting some fruit. But what we're going to do here is I'm going to take all this tape off, and I'm going to top this tree and show you how to encourage some branching here. In backyard orchard culture, you usually summer prune as well, and it's the summer pruning where you're taking off a lot of that top growth, and that's what stunts the tree and keeps it small. You don't even have to have a miniature or a dwarfing rootstock. You can have a standard rootstock, and you can dwarf your tree by summer pruning. And then in the winter, when you can see things, you come and tidy up the tree a bit, and you prune for fruit. So that's what we're going to do. We don't need this anymore. You ready for the big cut? It's beneficial to kind of look down your tree and see what's going on here. You can see we want this one, this one, this one, and I think this one as well. And that'll help us to start having a goblet shape. We've already got some nice branches here, and so I think I'll keep those 4. Now this is going to look very severe, but I think we need to come in here and make our cut right here. Wow. All right, so now we've made our cut knee high. That's usually where you want your tree. And I selected this particular tree because it had branches underneath the knee high area. And so I'm going to paint some protective coating on here to protect this little tree. And then I'm going to trim up these branches here. We want to tidy up these branches, and I want to bring them lower. I've got some nice branching at the top of these here, but it's too high. What we're doing now, we're trying to form our main structures. So what I've learned is that you find an outward facing bud, one that's going to grow this way, not one of these that's going to grow that way. You want to find an outward facing bud, and right above that you make a cut. Again, here's an outward facing bud. I don't like the location of that, but that's the one. Make a cut right above it. And what you're doing is you're topping the apical dominant, and it's this top bud here, the one that you select. Cut right above it, and that'll force that bud to grow out. And so that's how we're going to shape our tree. I think I'm going to leave this one just as it is. We're going to take that guy, we're going to leave that guy. And over here, there is a nice outward facing bud right there. Okay. That is an outward facing bud, but that's too long. I want this guy to catch up with some, I want this guy to beef up a bit. There we go. All right. Now that looks super extreme, but what's going to happen is when this tree breaks bud and starts coming out of dormancy, all of this energy from the root system is going to grow new leaf growth on here, new branches, and we have our main scaffolds now. This is going to be the shape of the tree. See how we want a goblet shape. Now if these are going too vertical, we can put a little spacer in there as it grows, and or weight it down a little bit. We don't want some people say you should have a high angle, and your growth, you want it to go upward. In this gobletized kind of culture, you don't want that. You want at least 45-degree angle or more. You want more lateral growth from your branches. So the trunk here and where it meets with these branches needs to be about 45 degrees or even flatter, because if it's vertical, that's a weak joint. You get a lot of fruit on here, and the tree hasn't built up enough tissue around that branch, and it can easily break off. So, well, that looks kind of sad, but we're off to a good start. I'm going to seal the cut here with some Ivy Organic plant guard. This will keep insects from getting in there, and it's very flavorful. It's got a lot of essential oils in here. I hope Phoebe doesn't turn her attention to this. No, move. And what we could do, if we wanted, is to paint this trunk to protect from sun scald, and we may come back and do that. But I just want to get this stuff dried up on here right now. All right. So there's our sad little tree. But actually, this is going to be a wonderful success. When this tree wakes up, and it's just about there, it's nice and pliable, it will put out new leaves, and we'll have a tiny little plum tree. We're going to keep it about 3 times that tall. So I don't want it any taller than me. I want to pick all my fruit right there. So we will let this branch out, and we will work at getting the tree to have some forks at the end of these scaffolds, and I'll show you how to do that as the years go by. This is necessarily a slow process. We're talking multiple year projects, so any of my videos that I do are just going to be one step in the process. We can't see the results yet, but I'm going to make a backyard orchard culture playlist, and all of the videos will go into that playlist so that in the future, years to come, we can look back and see the beginnings, how things went well, the mistakes we made, how we corrected those mistakes, and how we get fruit from our little trees. Hey, thanks for joining me on Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. Please subscribe, we really would appreciate that. And like us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.